Hannah Knight, speech number 2, modern day slavery. It does happen here. Imagine this. It's about 7 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. You're walking up and down Main Street waiting until it's time for you to head to the park to find a bench to sleep on tonight. Now you've done this 2 nights before, but sometimes you don't get to find one, so you're hoping the third time works. Your parents threw you out on Wednesday morning and you haven't eaten anything decent since. All of a sudden, a clean-cut looking man in a nice car pulls up and asks if you like a warm place to sleep or a meal for the night. So you're sitting there thinking, do I take his offer? You've always been told not to talk to strangers, but your stomach decides for you and you get in the car. Now, he didn't lie to you, and the first 24 hours are great. You eat, you sleep, you get to take a shower and everything, but then something changes, and he asks you how you're going to pay back the debt that you owe him. He didn't tell you anything about that before. Well, you don't have a way to pay, so he knows how you can pay him back. And before you know it, you've been sucked into the sex trafficking ring. According to Traffic 911, an organization in Dallas that works with traffic victims, sex trafficking is the largest growing crime in America. We spend a lot of time and money overseas helping traffic victims and slavery, but we don't work a lot in America. What people need to realize is it happens here too. Youth in America are suffering just as much trauma, but getting much less support. If we want to make a difference in this, there are some things we need to know. We need to know what trafficking is, why it's such a large industry, and what needs to change if we're going to make a difference. So what is trafficking? Sex trafficking is the exchange of any sexual act for anything with value. If people are going to know when they see a traffic victim, they need to know what to look for. Things like markings or tattoos that say property of or a barcode. They're really shy and they're not going to make eye contact. They're not sure of themselves. They're malnourished. Their stories won't match up. Strange bruising or cigarette burns or rope burns, these are things that you could notice. In the scenario I gave you before, you had been on the street a little over 48 hours, but statistics show that a minor will be picked up within the first 48 hours of being out on the street after being kicked out or running away. But why is sex trafficking such a big market? Well, if you think about it, with supply and demand, the supply is kind of endless. There's always going to be people, and there's a large demand because people are always going to want to have sex. People are disposable and reusable. The lifespan of a sex traffic victim is about 7 years. So if you pick a girl up when she's 13, when she's 20, you're probably done with her, and you've already got a new supply. There's also these things that we call hot spots. Places that it's really popular to pick up your next victim, like a high school where there's a lot of kids and a lot of population. They'll look for the shy kid or the kid that's not paying much attention to anyone else. They're probably not sure of themselves. They'll go flatter them and make them feel really worth something, but then they spend their time whining and dining them and making them pretty, but they're really just getting them ready for market. Now, hotspots go both ways. There's also places that are popular for them to take their prostitutes to be picked up. The Protected Innocence Initiative says that at the 2010 Super Bowl, there were approximately 10,000 prostitutes brought. So that shows you hotspots can go both ways. What do we need to change? We have to stop criminalizing the victims. Kimberly Catrola of the National Association of Social Workers says that most people don't realize that most prostitutes were brought into prostitution as minors. So they go to jail for things that we think are illegal and we think of them as dirty and bad, but in reality, someone else is making them do this or something worse will happen to them. Sarah Primrose, a writer for the University of Florida's Journal of Law and Public Policy, says that juvenile prostitutes have historically been treated as disgust and don't get shown much compassion. Well, that's because we don't know that they're suffering from something. When a prostitute is picked up, people are thinking that they've done something wrong, but they're not going to come out and tell you that they've been trafficked. You have to look for it, and when you don't know what to do, most of them are sent to jail, but every once in a while it's a thought that, well, jail's better than putting them back out on the street. You need to know the needs of a victim. Victims tend to form these things we call trauma bonds, and there's a cycle. It starts with the honeymoon phase, where everything's great and they're treating you wonderful, but then tension builds, and they start making you do things you don't want to do, and you don't know how to get out of it. And then there's the explosion, where you want to get out, or that's when the police first pick you up, or when you first get angry. And when that happens, you think you're done with it, and then your owner comes back, and he starts the honeymoon phase over, and he makes you want to get back into it. And then the cycle starts over. The National Colloquium Final Report of 2012 worked really hard to identify the needs of these victims when we get them out. One of the biggest problems with sex traffic victims is that we get them off the streets and then they'll go back into it when they get out because they don't have a job or they don't have ways of paying their bills. Their pimp comes back to get them and they don't have a way out of it. So it's really important that we figure out the needs of these people. In conclusion, if we want to make a change, we have to inform people and spread the word. We have to get the word out so that we can change this for America, not just for other countries. Thank you.